Okay, good evening. Last session we discussed about all types of statements, how to work with them. Next important, we need to know about JavaScript functions, how to handle and work with functions. So technically, what is the purpose of function? What is a function and what is the purpose of function? All these days we were using, but without complete knowledge. We were using functions in various examples here and there. But now we will detailedly discuss complete about function. Actually, functions are used, function for used for, we have a concept called functions are used for refactoring content. Functions are used for refactoring content. What is meant by refactoring content? Refactoring is nothing but it is a process of combining a set of statements and storing under one name. That is called refactoring. That means refactoring is the technique. Refactoring is the technique of extracting a function for set of statements is a technique of extracting a function for set of statements. So what is advantage? So that you can reuse the statements. Without rewriting, we can reuse the statements. For example, I will show you this refactor. What is refactor? For example, for that, let's open the project. This is our project, our web application. Okay. In this, I am creating a JavaScript file. Let's create a JavaScript file, demo.js. In JavaScript file, I am typing some statements, some set of statements like document.write some statement 1. Similarly, document.write statement 2, 3, 4, like this. Some set of statements are written. I want to use these statements again and again. Then see, I will select these lines. I will select those lines and right click on the selected lines. You will see there is an option called refactor. This refactor you will find only in separate JavaScript file. Suppose in HTML you select lines and right click, you will not see refactor. In separate JavaScript file, you will find this option. And see what happens when I right click and say refactor. It will ask extract to function. I will say extract to function, and you can give any name. Function name I will give as print statements, and it will store it as a function. That means all the statements are kept in a function so that we can access and use them anywhere, any number of times. This mechanism of combining all of them in one function, it is called refactor. That is why I given the word refactoring. It is very rare word. That means many people cannot understand, even they know JavaScript, the word refactor, because that is very high level word, right? Very experienced people use that word. But it is good to know it because that is the actual definition of function. That means function is used for refactoring. You will not find this type of definition anywhere, but we have proved that. Just now we have proved that it is called refactor. That means when I select and I right click and say refactor, it will create a function. So technically, refactoring means extracting a function for a set of statements. So that use the statements. That is the purpose of function. Now in interviews, they ask questions like, so is there, what is difference? What is difference? Difference between a function and method. So, or sometimes they may ask like function, method, between or and procedure. Many times this question is asked, what is difference between these three? Because these three are similar. But in JavaScript, we don't have procedures. We have only function and method. Difference is nothing but actually function. First thing you should know is function. So function, it is intended to return a value. It is intended to return a value. That means its main intention is to return some value. Actually, function is used for building expression, building an expression that returns value. That is the purpose. That is the main purpose. But actually, function, it is function is immutable. That means it cannot change. Immutable means it cannot change according to situation, state and situation. That is what actually function is. That means it cannot change according to state and situation. It will do a same type of work every time. But actually method is it may or not return value. May or may not return a value. It may or not return a value. So remember, so actually it is mutable. It is mutable means it can change according to situation. According to situation, it can change. Method can change according to situation. That is the concept of method. Functions cannot change according to situation. And important is you will not find methods everywhere. In JavaScript, methods are defined in class only. Methods are defined in class only. What is a class? You will learn in OOP concept. As of now, there is no question of method. That means currently in JavaScript till now, whatever you used, all are functions. Methods will come only in a class. So you will not see them anywhere, right? And procedure, we don't have procedure in JavaScript. Procedures are not there in JavaScript. Procedure. So procedure, it is available. It is available in database programming. Database programming only it is available. We call them as stored procedures. Stored procedures. Stored procedure. What is advantage of stored procedure is it can return value. It can return value, or it can be void type. It can be void type. According to situation, it can change again. It is also mutable. It can change according to situation. It can return value or it can be void type. That means that means it can change according to situation. But it is not there in JavaScript. In JavaScript, the behavior of procedure is same like method. Right? In JavaScript, we don't have procedures. In JavaScript, we have only functions. Only functions and methods. Procedures you will see in database programming. In database programming, you will see stored procedures while learning SQL and all these like. So what is the specialty of procedure is, if situation suits, it will return value. If doesn't suits, it will be void. It can change its behavior. That is actually difference between these three. So in JavaScript, there is no question of procedure. And until you learn classes and OOPs, there is no question of method. So we have only function as of now. So the main purpose is to reuse. Now, how to configure the function? Lot of things are there. Let's see configuring a function. How to configure a function? Actually, every function comprises of three phases. Every function contains three phases. One is we have declaration. Second, signature. Third, definition. Every function have three phases: declaration, signature, and definition. What does that means? I will show you. See, suppose we are writing a function here. We are writing a function and function name print page. And this function may take some parameters. And this is the function what statements it have to execute. Now, very important in this part that is including the word keyword function print page, this is called declaration. That is called declaration. And only the function name and parameters. Only the function name and parameters. Only this part is called signature. That is called function signature. And what functionality it does? That means the statements. This is called definition. That is called definition. That means the function definition tells what activity it will do, what functionality it will do. Function signature is used to call the function and use the function. If you want to call and use the function anywhere, function is called and function is used by using signature. We have to access. That means we have to use print page, and print page we have to pass the value. So this is by using the signature we access the function. So function contains three phases: declaration, signature, and definition. So we have three phases. Declaration defines function keyword and name and parameters. The function keyword, name and parameters. That means it will be like function. So print page and parameters. This is called declaration. And signature defines function name and parameters. Name and parameters. That means it is print page and params. That is the signature. And definition defines the statements to execute. It defines the statements to execute. What statements to execute? We have to write like this. So this is whatever the statements we have to define. That is called definition. Sometimes you can write a function without definition. Sometimes we can write the functions without parameters. Those all we will see, we will discuss. But actually, it contains these three phases. Right? So we have declaration, we have signature, and we have definition. So important is a function is called by using its signature. A function is called by using its signature. Right? That is what actually the concept. So for example, we have function. So print page and parameters, and we have like this, we access it, print page, and we pass the value like this. That is the declaration of function. This is the calling of function, how we can define and call. So this is the first important thing you should know. That means the configuring of function configuration. So three phases are there: declaration, signature, and definition. All these days we were using, but we don't know technical words, right? What is signature? What is definition? You have to know. Now, the next important function parameters. Function parameters. Actually, why a function needs parameters? Why we need a function with parameters? Why a function needs parameters? So function can be parameterless. So function can be parameterized. What is the purpose of parameters in a function? The purpose of parameters in a function. Why we need parameters? What is the purpose of parameters in a function? Parameters is not for passing data. I am asking why we need it. You are telling what parameters will do. Means you are saying that parameters will allow to pass data. Why you have to pass data? Why you have to pass data into a function? Why you have to pass data? Generally, parameters, parameters are used to modify the function. Parameters are used to modify the function, not for input, not for passing data. We need parameters to modify the function. That is the point. Why we need parameters? Parameters need to modify. So, because a function will do a work, the same work every time. If I want to I want to modify the functionality. I want the function to do different works according to the situation. Then we have to pass that by using parameters. For example, I will show you so that you can understand actually. Suppose function .html. See, here I am writing a script and I am defining. So for function is print numbers and print numbers. I am writing a function for where I is equal to 1, I less than or equal to 5, I plus plus. Now document dot write will print I plus br. Now I am running this page. I need to call the function. I am calling the function print numbers. Now it is printing 5 numbers. I am calling the function print numbers again. It is printing again 5. But I want sometimes 10 numbers. I want sometimes 20 numbers. I want sometimes 2 numbers. Then for every count, you create a function. We will not create a function for every count. We will create only one function which can work for all. That means it should be able to change itself. How a function can change its functionality. So I can pass a parameter. That means I will pass here how many, count how many. Count means print how many. I am just like writing how many. That means now this how many I am passing here less than how many. That means now whenever I access print numbers, I will tell how many. That means I will say 4. That means now it will print 4 numbers. I will say 14, then it will print 14. I will say 8 or 6, it will print 8. Now what parameter is doing? It is modifying the functionality. It is taking value, input. That is okay. I am not objecting that. Parameters will take value. They will take value. Why they are taking value? To modify the function. Parameters allowed to pass data. Why you are passing data? To modify the function. So the purpose of parameter is to modify function. They will take input, they will allow to pass data, all are correct, but not correct answer. That means purpose of parameter is not for passing data, not for taking input, not for taking input. The main purpose is to modify the function. To modify the function, you can modify the function by using this. Modify the function. The purpose is to modify the function, right? So here the main purpose of parameters are used to modify function. That means they will allow to change the behavior of the function depending on the situations. So technically here one more point is there now. So we define syntactically like this. We have a function and function name, and we have parameters. We can define like this. We can configure like this. Now, whenever you call, we pass some value into it and define like this. Here, important, you should know the parameters that are defined in the signature while declaring. While declaring whatever parameters are there, these are called formal parameters. Formal parameters. They are called formal parameters. The parameters which are mentioned inside the declaration, they are formal. And the values that you pass while calling the function, you pass parameters. These are called actual parameters. Actual parameters. We call actual parameters. That means here the parameters inside declaration, they are formal, and the parameters in calling the function, they are actual. Formal means they can have any name. Under that name, these values are stored. That means the actual values are stored in the formal parameters. That is actual and formal. And how many parameters a function is accepting, how many parameters is a function configured with, those are called as arguments. Arguments indicate how many parameters allowed. That means this function allows how many parameters? Only one. That means this function will take how many arguments? Only one argument. Actually, they are parameters only. But when we collectively tell about a function, that this function needs 2 arguments. This function needs 5 arguments. That is how we call. But arguments means actually parameters. Parameters means formal parameters. So formal parameters are also called as arguments. But we use the word arguments when we are talking about the declaration. That means when function is declared, in the declaration, it is expecting 2 arguments. That means we will say that invalid arguments, because in the function declaration, it is having 2 parameters. You are passing only 1 parameter. Argument is not matching. Argument is not matching. That is how we tell. That means there is nothing like what is difference between parameter and argument. Some people ask like that. What is difference between parameter and argument? Parameters means arguments only. Parameters are arguments. In a function declaration, the parameters are considered as arguments. But when we call them as arguments in verification, while verifying whether the number of arguments passed correctly or not, we use the word arguments. While verifying, we use the word arguments. Okay. So function will have parameters, right? So we have 2 important points here. So function parameters are classified into two types. We have formal parameters and actual parameters. So formal parameters are defined in function declaration, the formal parameters are defined, and the actual parameters are defined while calling the function while calling the function and very important is, here I will give a syntax. That means function and function name, and we have formal parameter, and we will call the function name, we have to use actual parameter. Now verifying the number of parameters, uh, ask number of parameters defined, and the number of parameters passed. Okay, number of parameters defined and the number of parameter passed is done with reference of arguments, that means how many arguments it is asking, how many arguments you pass, right? Arguments, that means formal parameters and actual parameters both are called arguments. How many arguments it is asking, how many arguments you are passing. That means arguments refers to both formal and actual parameter. Both are called arguments. So, but which is formal, which is actual, we have to know, right? They are defined as arguments. Now, another important here is, that is general. This diagram I will upload into class. That later I will upload that. So technically, now important is you defined parameters. So that means you configured the parameter, and the purpose of parameter I will give. What is the purpose of parameter? We can modify the function. Next time I want to print 10 numbers, I can use print numbers as a 10. You can define like this. Now, very important, every parameter defined in function is mandatory. Every parameter defined in function is mandatory. Another important, the order of parameters is also having dependency priority. Dependency is also having same dependency, having the same order dependency, right? Same order dependency. The order of parameters is also having same order dependency. That means, suppose I am passing here. That means, you see, I said function, some details. Details is a function. It is expecting ID and it is expecting name. And you call details and you entered only name. Now this TV is stored in ID. It is stored in ID. And what about name? Name is equal to undefined. That means it will not consider this as name. It will not consider this as name because order dependency. That means as per the order, first one is ID. And in JavaScript, you don't have type restriction. You can store anything in that ID. Number, string, boolean, undefined, anything you can store. And every parameter is mandatory. That means if I don't pass the parameter value, obviously it will be undefined. So it is compulsory. And if I pass like this details without passing anything into it, then obviously it will return ID and name is equal to undefined. It will return undefined, right? Because you are not mentioning about them. So every parameter is mandatory, and every parameter order is also same. That means you can have multiple parameters. That means better here I will give. You can define multiple parameters. Why we need multiple parameters? See, we can define multiple parameters. Suppose I want to decide where to start, where to stop. That means numbering should start with 10, stop at 100. Next time it should start with 50 and stop at 70. Your wish. In that case, how many and we can put start. So, or your wish, you can write in any order. That means how many you want to print and where to start. Now I will use that start here. I equal to start. I is equal to start. That means first you have to write which one, how many to print, how many to print. So to print 10, comma, where to start, start at 5. That means it will start at 5 and it will print up to 10. If I say 10 10, that means if I say like this 10 10, it will not print anything, only 10 will be printed. So that means if I say 11, I am using something start, it cannot print anything. It cannot print anything because it should match that condition. That means, so print how many. So that means where to end, where to start. Actually, we can define start and end. Your wish, order your wish. You can write any order, but you have to pass same order. That means, for example, I am writing here. So this is start and this is end. Then what we will do, start with this and end with this. That means now here I will give start with 100 and end with 130. That means you will see that it will start from 130. That is, you can have multiple parameters. You can have more than one parameter, but parameter order is important. Syntax I will give here. I will give another example. Let's see. Suppose I am giving a function details. This is ID, name, and price. And I need to print the details. Document.write. I have to print ID is equal to the value of ID. In the next line, I have to print name is equal to the value of name. I need to print the price is equal to the value of price. We need to configure like this. Now I am passing here details, and I am not passing anything into it. Then you see here, it will display all undefined. All undefined. So, and I am passing here as, suppose I am passing as Samsung TV, thinking that I am passing name, but actually I am passing ID because the first place is for ID. Then it will print ID as Samsung TV. Because JavaScript don't have any restriction for numbers and all, we have to write manual. So in that case, it will take anything. Then how we can define ID? So it should be 1. After that, the ID. So, and last value is not defined, price. And we define the price like this. We configure in this way. Every parameter is mandatory. Suppose you are not writing this, then automatically you are not writing this. All this will be taken as name. If I leave the price as empty, now it okay. That means now the price is empty. Name is empty. Price is defined. You can put 0, but you cannot leave blank. You have to mention something there. Or you can do one thing. You can also use undefined. For example, see here, I'm asking name and price. Okay, I want to print name and price. And the point is, if name not entered, then print price. Right? So then we have to write condition. If price is equal to undefined, that means if they haven't mentioned price, then what should do? Document dot write print only name. That means here you print only name. That's it. You write another condition. You know choices na. That means if name is equal to undefined, if name is equal to undefined, document dot write. So you print both only price. Price. You define price. You know how to write this. We have to use else if. We have to write multiple condition. Else it should print both name and price. That means if both are not undefined, then it should print name and price. Like this lot of logic we have to write. There is no other solution because every parameter is compulsory. Every parameter is compulsory. There is no other solution. You have to handle like this. So I am printing details. And here, see, you can't leave empty. Remember, you cannot leave empty. Order is important. So what we do at name location, we will write undefined. At name location, we will write undefined. And here we will write price. Price is some price. Then what it will do is it will print only name. It will only print price because this name is undefined. It will print only price. Suppose I configured, so here name, so I configured name Samsung TV, something like this, Samsung TV, and here the price is not defined. That means it is not defined because right side you can leave empty, but left side you cannot leave empty. You have to put the values. That means this is not defined. Then it will print only name because automatically it will take as undefined. You don't need to write undefined. You have to write undefined only for left occurrences. Right occurrences already undefined. They will take by default as undefined. So order is important. So you mentioned name and price. Name and price, they have to print both. Like that, you have to handle the logic. Otherwise, it cannot print in the correct way, right? This is the example of parameter. So you can have multiple parameters. You can have multiple parameters. And very important, function can have any type of parameter. Because many times people ask, what kind of parameter I can have in a function? So function can have any type of parameter. It can be primitive type. It can be non-primitive type, or even it can be a function. Anything you can have as a parameter. Even a function can be a parameter in function. Many times people ask this question like, can I have an object? Can I have a string? Can I have an array? You can have anything. The parameter can be anything. That means, for example, see here, suppose I am using details. Remember, parameter can be any type, but in the formal you have to just give name. That means parameter can be any type. This is very important. So function parameter can be any type, can handle can handle can handle any type of value. So any type of value, but in list formal list you have to just define a name for parameter. You have to just define a name for parameter, only name for parameter. That means, see, suppose I want a parameter, suppose product, it is an object, no need to write like this. It is an array, no need to write like this. So parameter name is only name. In that you can store anything you want. That means what I can store in this product, it can be object, it can be string, it can be number, it can be array, it can be even a function. You can store anything. Just while accessing and passing, you have to pass. For example, my intention is object. I will say product object. Okay. Then what we do is we write like this. So for where property in product object, you know how to print properties and values now. That means we will use document dot write. We will print the property. We will print the property and we will print the product object of property. It will print the property value. Na? We already learned that. That means now when I when I call details, into the details, we have to pass an object. Because you are expecting an object, then object is passed like this. Or you can create one separate object and pass it. That means here I am giving name is TV. I am giving price, some price. Like this I can define. Now you can see it is going to print those details. Of course, you put here BR because we are printing all name and price. Now we can print all. Now you are adding anything like stock as true, then it will print the detail and display. Now you can do in this way. For example, I will put here object as parameter. That means it is like this. Suppose I can pass like this. This I can put in. So let TV is equal to object. And I can pass the TV here, right? It can be anywhere. Suppose I am writing here Samsung TV and you can see it is printing the details. There is save. Okay. I need to save and it will print the detail. That means you can create an object and pass, or you can directly pass an object. Along with object, you can have another object, another data, anything you can do. Now, this is object. For example, this is another point, another example, object as parameter. You can have array as parameter. You can have array as parameter. That means you see here, I will put another option, function print list. Here we are expecting a collection. You can pass any collection. I will use for where item of what collection, and into that I will print that item. That means document dot write item, because you know how to deal with array. Now this time I am expecting an array. That means you don't need to write like square brace and all. So here you just formal is only name. And here we call print list. Into that we pass array. We pass array. If I pass object, It will take, but it cannot print it properly. Why? Because the logic is not for object, logic is for array. That means I will put here TV, so here I will put here mobile, like this I will put here like shoe, and you can see it is going to handle. You can have multiple arrays, you can have single array. I will put here every item will put a break, then it will print those details. You can pass anything and any number, so this you can pass. You can have a function as a function. A function parameter also can be there. Function as parameter, for example, see here, I am asking for like this. Suppose I will say function, so verify. This verify is expecting password, it is expecting success, it is expecting failure. Right now, what happens is we are writing if password is equal to some admin, if it is matching with admin, then success I am writing like parenthesis. That means now success is expecting a function, is expecting a function. So password, so password is expecting a string, and failure, else which function? Else failure, failure also expecting like a function. Remember, a function allows function as parameter means don't think that you write function here, because formal parameter is always only name. Into that, while passing, see now, verify, into that we will pass password. Password is some admin. After that I am expecting a function. Function, here you write function. Now this function doesn't require name because this will be under this name, and we need another function. This function will be under this name. Now, very important, what the first function should do, your wish. I will put document dot write, I will say password, password verified, verified, or say success, login success, this message will be. What about then end it? Okay, that is a function you are writing inside function. Now here document dot write, so invalid password, invalid password, we need to display like this, we need to configure in this way. Now see what happens here according to that what password you pass. Of course these all you can handle. Suppose you see I can put here, so password is equal to prompt, understood, enter password. I am defining enter password, what password you want. Now you see here I am configuring, it asks enter password. I entered some wrong password, then it says invalid. I entered some correct password, then it says login success. If anybody asks like what is the purpose of function as parameter, the purpose of function as parameter, what is the purpose of function as parameter? Function is used as parameter, that's okay, good. So the question here is, what is the purpose, what is the purpose of function as parameter? Why you are using functions as parameters? What do you say? What is the purpose of function as parameter? What do you think? Any idea? Function means to do some work, na? Right? What is the purpose of a function? Actually, the purpose of function as parameter is to handle callback. Technically, we call callback. Now the question is, what is callback? Callback is nothing but callback comprises of set of functions. So a set of functions which are executed according to situation. We have some set of functions, but all are not executed. That means we have set of functions, all are not executed. Which one will execute will be decided according to the situation. That means if situation matching, one function, not matching, another function. Generally, when you write function, we call the function. That means the function that you call, that only will execute. But here, we will not call a function. It will execute that function automatically. That means here, we are mentioning to execute success, failure. But when success, when failure, that is not under our control. We given some functions. Which function to execute, it will decide. That mechanism is called callback. Callback means you give some set of functions and leave it. So it will decide which one to execute. Do I need to call? You cannot call the functions in callback. The functions in callback will execute according to situation. You cannot call the functions in callback. Even you call, they cannot work because they are designed for situation. If situation matching, then only it will execute. If situation not matching, they will not execute, depending on the situation. That is the callback mechanism actually. So this is general example to understand callback. Already given. So what is the purpose of a function as parameter? To handle callback. And what is callback? Callback comprises of a set of functions which are executed according to situation. Actually, it is also known as promise. We call this mechanism as promise. But technically creating promises is different point, we will see. Actually, you learned a promise already. One of the popular promise that you have learned already in JavaScript is fetch. Fetch have two options, one then and another then. Now, you know already that this then will execute only when this is satisfying. Am I right? And the second then will execute, only second then will execute when the first one is satisfied. That means if response is converted into JSON, that JSON data will come and be used in this second then. This is promise actually, and this is called promise pipe. Promise means actually one alternative, to that alternative another alternative, to that another alternative. This is called promise pipes. Right? That means if anybody asked you, have you worked with promises in JavaScript? Of course, we work with promises. Don't think that promise will have the word promise. That means actually some people think like that, because actually promise is a class. So these all are derived from that promise class. Any function is used in callback is actually using a promise. Any function used in callback is actually using a promise. You can directly create one promise with the help of promise class, or by default they are promises. You see, suppose I am writing fetch method. When I am writing fetch method, interestingly, you will see this fetch is a promise type. You see, it is a promise. As a promise, what it is sending? response. As a promise, it is sending response. That means internally it is a promise. Many people don't know this, right, until somebody have to tell the learners, because many times people come with complaint and say, sir, in JavaScript you haven't teach this promise concept because I haven't given heading. Uh, if a topic is topic, we learnt a topic means heading should be there in notes. If heading is not there, then we haven't learnt, right? Because many topics are related to what we have learned. All are very advanced, so many. And those have some technical names. If I don't tell the technical names, then you will feel like you haven't learned them. But if I tell technical names and teach you, you will be confused. Learners should not learn like that. Learners should not learn like that. That means we should not put a heading promise, under promise one program. Then people's brain will not understand cleanly. They think that okay, promise means it will work like this only. That means for promise, I learned only one example. That's how people think. So that is not good. That means many times what people do is they put heading JavaScript promises under that two examples. That means now your brain will be seized that okay, promise means only these two. But you should know that it is used in various locations. That's the reason I will be telling and revealing the actual names now. You have learned so many things, but I will be revealing those names now, so that you will understand that okay, this is promise. And why it is called promise, you will understand now. It is easy to understand, no need to explain, because a promise contains callbacks. That means no need to even explain definition, it is easy. That means now you clearly know that a promise contains some statements on success, some statements on failure, sometimes on success only, multiple statements. We call them as pipe. We call them as pipe, right? This is technical, right? That means promise uses callbacks. Promise uses callbacks. This is actually callback technique. That is the callback technique. By using the callback technique, that means whether success will execute or failure will execute. That is decided actually. Later, separate promise, I will tell you how to create a separate promise and work with that, I will show. Right? But these are all under that concept on. Right? And one of the main promise that you have learned is fetch. It is very big example actually. This is very big example. If you say that in JavaScript I learned fetch promise, that is great, because many people don't know about fetch in JavaScript. They learn in jQuery, jQuery Ajax. They learn about fetching API, working with APIs. For them, promises means Ajax. But before that itself, you already learned that promise, and that you done by using fetch, right? So we'll see more detailed points about the promise concept. So function can have any type of parameter, any number of parameters. But here one problem is that actually, uh, uh, very important, another question is how many parameters, are allowed. How many parameters are allowed? So maximum, that means as per ECMA standards 1024 parameters allowed. As per ECMA standards 1024, the maximum number of parameters. And another important is passing too many parameters is not good for programming, because passing too many parameters always leads to hacking. That means Majority of hacking depends on parameters only. We hack their information and application by passing parameters. Means if a function is not allowing to pass anything, then hacking is difficult. If any application is allowing to pass something, that means if a function is allowing to pass a parameter, that means it is opening. You can pass parameters. So passing data is always risky. And if you are allowing multiple parameters to pass, this is always risky. Huge burden to the function memory. That is the reason what happened is, so JavaScript ES5 version onwards, ES5 introduced REST parameters. What is the purpose of REST parameter is a single REST parameter, better to write like normal REST. Yeah, a single REST parameter allows multiple arguments. A single parameter allows multiple arguments. For example, see, we can use that in this way. Suppose, see here, how many arguments? 3 arguments. One is password, another one success, another one failure. Like that, it is very risky. So better what you do is, here you define only one REST parameter. REST parameters are designed like this: dot, dot, dot. 3 dots. Even 20 parameters also 3 dots. 3 dots and parameter. Some args like this I am giving. You can give any name you can give. I am just giving args. That means all arguments are now passed into this one reference. Now remember, this is an array type. Array type means it will take multiple arguments. Now what we have to do, how to separate them? It is an array type. Multiple parameters are passed into it. How to separate them? You remembered we learned destructuring array. We learned destructuring array. How we can destruct array? Where I will click 3 variables. What is it? One is password, another one is success, another one is failure, and into that I will pass args. Am I right? This is destructuring array. Remember, this is array. It is array. Destructuring array means the first argument will be stored in password. Second argument will be success. Third argument will be failure. That's okay. It works now. That means now you don't need to pass 3 arguments. Means you have to just define all, means don't need to define multiple parameters. Only one parameter will take any number. Now you see what is advantage of this. You see, I said password, some wrong, then invalid. I said password admin, then it says success. It's working fine, but this time this is that. This is REST mechanism. So always good to define REST parameter. REST parameter defined with by using dot 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 parameter name. But here we have so many restrictions again. What is the restriction is, every function can have only one REST parameter. And very important, REST parameter must be the last parameter. REST parameter must be the last parameter. That means you can have another parameter with REST. That means I can have another parameter with REST. For example, I am giving message. But this is wrong. Why? Because REST parameter must be last. You see what error it says. A REST parameter must be last in parameter list. That means you can have this parameter MSG first. Understood? Now what we have to do, suppose I am printing that message. That means here I will print. So just I will put here document dot write. So in a heading style, I will print that MSG. In a heading style, I will print that MSG. I will close that heading style. Like this, I am defining, right? I am printing that in a heading style. And here, this is the first one. Here in the first place, we have to pass the message. That means here, verify user details. That is the heading. After that, you can pass others. That means this first one will be stored under this MSG. All others will be stored under this. If anybody asks why a REST parameter must be last, because it should read up to end. Because it should read up to end. So up to end, that is the reason last. If you keep before, then it cannot read up to end. Because a REST parameter should read up to end. So that means it must be the last one. There cannot be any another parameter after that. Now you can see that it is going to handle and print the details. Suppose admin, and it will say, right? You can have another parameter along with REST parameter. So, but it must be last. REST parameter must be the last parameter in that list. That is about the function parameters. Function parameters. Another important, you need to know about function return types. Return type. Why we need a function with return type and all. That we'll see in next session. Right? Monday we will see that. Right? In Monday session, we will discuss function return types, function closures, function recursions. So many are there related to functions. I told you, this is the part where you need to be perfect for interviews. Right? I will give all interview questions after this topic. Right? Already I'm giving FAQs. Right? Till now, wherever I given FAQs, they are all interview questions only. If you prepare all of them at one place, those are all interview questions only, right? At experience level, fresher level, any level. All till now, in from HTML onwards, I was giving FAQs, right? Everywhere, whatever I given as FAQs are even for fresher to experience important, right? These we will discuss in next session. Monday we will see, okay? Right.